It's that time. The NFL playoffs are here. We've been waiting for it all season long, and I've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL, who's kicking things off with a huge offer. Throughout the playoffs, all new customers, that's all new customers, will get $200 in bonus bets instantly when they place their first $5 wager on anything. Get in on the action this weekend by downloading the DraftKings app, and don't forget to use my promo code 365sports. That's right. Customers who bet $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. But you say, Paul, I signed up for the DraftKings app the first time you told me to. Well, guess what? If you've already signed up for it, like I have, you get a no sweat bet, and that's if you get a bonus bet back if your same game parlay does not hit. Max limits do apply. And if sports betting is not available in your area, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with the DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the chance to win cash prizes. I've done that as well. Love it, love it, love it. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code 365sports. Bet $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code 365sports only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
We are now joined by Tim Brando, Fox Sports in Champaign, Illinois, for a basketball game. And Tim, thanks for your time as a guy that has covered college football as much as you have, and we couldn't go the rest of the week without your thoughts about Nick Saban.
Well, there was a lot to take in yesterday when that drive from O'Hare to Champaign around 4:30 in the afternoon as I was making my way in. It's about a 2-hour drive. My phone was blowing up, as you might imagine. I'm not surprised, really, at all. I think maybe our sports broadcasting community and maybe the media in general seemed surprised because most of the focus and attention since the national championship game was played was on, whether Jim Harbaugh was going to stay in Michigan or not. So maybe that the timing of that is why so many people were stunned, maybe, and especially, I get it in Alabama and surrounding area because they were hoping he'd never leave, that he would coach until, he was 6 feet under. They really wanted him to stay for as long as possible, and were trying to put off the inevitable in their own minds for a long, long time. But I have stated this, and those of you that follow me on social media as well as a broadcaster have seen, I think, many indicators that Nick was not pleased with the direction that the game had gone in from a coaching standpoint for him. I mean, he would never publicly proclaim that he had as many issues with the transfer portal or with NIL as he did. And even today, I understand he was interviewed by Reese Davis, and I'm sure Reese got as much out of him as possible. But from a public standpoint, he'll never admit to that being a vital issue, but I guarantee it was a contributing issue. And I'll go back to the summer before the 22 season when he said what he did about Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. And I think that there were other notable signs during the course of this season at the beginning of the year when discussions about the quarterback position came up and the depth chart debacle where he got really crossways, I think, with a lot of the local media because he didn't want to put out a depth chart showing, which order he had his quarterbacks in. And that was, of course, during the time when they were trying to determine whether it was going to be Jalen Milroe or Simpson or Buckner, who they had brought over out of the portal out of Notre Dame with Tommy Rees. So all of that was the short temper with that particular issue, which I thought was not in keeping with Nick Saban's modus operandi. I thought that those were all signs to me that he was very uncomfortable with a lot of what was going on. But that being said, the other thing I think he said today, and I haven't seen the interview, but I've read snippets from it, was that he felt drained and that it just took so much more out of him this year to get that team where it was. I absolutely saw that. I could see that he was, and I think in a lot of ways he did do maybe as good or perhaps maybe the best job that he could possibly do in the last, 10 or more years with this team to get them to the college football playoff. I mean, that was not a very good team, and it wasn't a vintage team at all for them. I mean, they almost lost at home to Arkansas. They needed a 4th and 31 to beat Auburn, and yet, managed to stun, I think, the entire college football world, and especially the committee, when they beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I don't think anyone thought that Alabama was going to win that game. But that became, I think, a game that meant a great deal to him, that if he was going to get out of the business after this season, he didn't want people to think that he had lost his step, so to speak, in keeping up with Georgia, and particularly someone that had come from his coaching tree, Kirby Smart. He wanted to make sure that he maintained that SEC championship edge with never having lost to him or Georgia in an SEC championship game, and he did. And that might have been one of his proudest moments, I think, as a coach with this team. So, but I think it did take a lot out of him. And with that in mind, I was not surprised at all that this was the time. I think most of us felt like Nick would wait until he won one more, meaning a national championship. I did think legacy, getting past Bear Bryant to have 7 titles there and 8 overall, counting the one at LSU in 03, maybe meant something to him, but it didn't mean enough. He had enough. And like any great coach that has standards that he sets for himself, he knew that he was not going to, either short-term or long-term or both, be up to the standards he set for himself, and that's why he decided to step away.
Tim, when it comes to replacing him, what qualities does that coach have to be successful, knowing that replicating that is highly unlikely?
You better have virtually no ego. It's going to take a special guy. My understanding is Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, and Sarkisian have all been contacted and have all, at least according to the reports I've read, have passed. And I certainly understand that. And that isn't to say that they have egos, but I think they're also well aware that for coaching longevity, you're probably much wiser if you're not the guy that replaces the guy. You'd rather be the guy that replaces the guy that replaced the guy. And, ask Phil Bingston about replacing Lombardi in Green Bay. Ask anyone that tried to replace Gary Cunningham, who tried to replace Gene Bartow, who tried to replace John Wooden at UCLA in basketball. It's really, really hard. It's very, very difficult. But I think whoever does get the job, whoever does take it, is going to have to really be comfortable in his own skin, and also be confident that he can be the kind of coach and leader with the autonomy that he believes he deserves, with the long shadow cast of a guy like of Nick Saban's ilk in his midst. I mean, Nick's going to stay apparently there, and he's going to have an office there. And I do know this: he has bought land, and is a member of a golf course near and dear to many people in Jupiter, Florida. So he's got a lot of houses. He's got a place there, and he's got a place in Georgia, not far from Reynolds Plantation, where there's a magnificent golf course that I've had the opportunity to play and would remind a lot of people of Augusta. He's usually not playing golf there. He's usually out driving his boat and out with his kids and his family spending time. So I don't know exactly how much time in Tuscaloosa or at that office at Bryant Denny that they say he's going to have. I don't know how much time he's going to spend there, but he wants to be a factor in the world of Alabama football. At least it seems that way. And so with that in mind, his presence at any time is going to be one that whoever replaces him as coach is going to have to be comfortable with. And that's not easy in a profession that is valued as the job of being the head football coach at Alabama.
Tim, there was a clip going around of some Alabama fans who were like chanting no to Dabo, right? And I know his image has taken a couple of dings over the last couple of years, but he's still got skins on the wall. He's got history there. Do you think Dabo's, where would you kind of rate him in your mind as far as the potential interest level there?
Well, my guess is he's very satisfied and happy that the statues that are going to be put up at Clemson are going to be of him. Okay? That he won't be coaching where there are statues of Gene Stallings and Nick Saban. But, if you're an Alabama guy and you were part of that Gene Stallings team that won the national championship, and he was, as an original walk-on in 1992, there will be, obviously, if the job is offered to him, it'll be that side of him that will be I think in a position to have to take stock and take a look at the opportunity if it presents itself. As for the fan base, if that were to happen, I think they've got to get over that. I think they've got to get over it fast. And I do think that a guy like him would fit, in my opinion, the profile that I just gave you about the next coach would have to really have virtually no ego. And some people might think, well, Brando, Dabo Sweeney's got an ego. Yeah, he does, but not the kind of ego that a lot of coaches would have about their relevance on the food chain of college football legends that are currently coaching with and are sitting with multiple national titles. I mean, you got to respect what Dabo Sweeney's done, regardless of how fans of Alabama feel. He did beat the GOAT twice, and one time he beat him badly, beat him soundly. So I think they'd change their tune in a heartbeat if it became a fait accompli that Dabo Sweeney was going to be the best they could get. But I don't know that Dabo, as much as he loves it in Clemson and with the culture he created, even though he's become a little bit of a whipping boy for a lot of the media, a real punching bag in the SEC. I mean, it's some of the things that are said on a regular basis by not just fans of Alabama, but Georgia and several other schools in the Southeastern Conference about Dabo is beyond the pale. He was hard-headed about the portal and has been hard-headed about it, and very vocally hard-headed about it. But as I said, I think that Dabo was simply stating and saying some of the things that Nick really feels, but was never going to say publicly, because he was smart enough to realize that if you have to adjust and adapt to the way the game is played on the field, if you're going to hang around and be relevant for as long as he's been, you've got to be able to adjust and adapt with the way the game is played off the field. And that meant that on some occasions you were just going to have to bite your tongue about how you feel about certain things. And listen, Nick didn't despise the portal or NIL. He didn't. As a matter of fact, he got in trouble, going after, supposedly, at least the media takeaway was, he got in trouble going after Jimbo for simply telling his donors, if you guys want me to continue to hold up these crystals, you're going to have to reach a little deeper into your pockets to keep up with these oil barons in Texas. All right? That's what got him in trouble with a lot of people. And he was simply telling the truth at that time. He was. So I think he was just being honest about it. But he would never publicly say that this is wrong. He just, I think, got tired of, and I was at the shoot-around today. Tom Izzo talks to Saban pretty regularly, and he did, after the Michigan game, talk to Nick. They've been friends since his days at Michigan State, and Tom really always said that it's a shame that they let him go. They didn't realize that just for a little more money, they would have been able to keep him from going to LSU at that time. He was not a popular choice at LSU when he was hired by then President Mark Emmert, and Joe Dean Sr. was the AD at that time. He was really considered an outsider, an outlier, and a lot of people didn't know that much about him in the South at that particular time. So, Izzo thought they could have kept him if they had just shown how badly they wanted to. And it's one of the reasons why Michigan State doled out all that money that they did for the coach that they ultimately had to get rid of, was because they were in a similar situation where they didn't want to lose a coach that they felt for the long term would have been the best guy to have. And so they upped the ante, and you saw what happened there. But the word on the streets among some people in the coaching profession is that there were some parents of some of the players in question that you're trying to hold on to. And some of them may have indicated, hey, if you can't come up with this amount, we're gonna go someplace else. And I think a lot of old school coaches might, they may have to draw the line at a certain point, and say, and that's happening everywhere. Okay, it's not as if Nick Saban had to deal with a disgruntled parent that was wanting more money for his kid. That's every coach in America dealing with the portal is dealing with that, football and basketball. I mean, it's going on. And, but for it to be going on at this stage of someone's career like his, I think at a certain point you just say, why do I want to put up with this? And if that's the case, and that happened with a player or two or three, I don't know, but that's the word on the street that may have been happening. And I think that may have helped him make that decision, put in cement, so to speak. But he was already thinking, I think, for quite a while, maybe through the entire back half of the season, that this was going to be it. I'll tell you this about Saban, because I've known him since he was at Michigan State and got to know him more closely, obviously, when he was at LSU. My daughter was actually in school there. My oldest child was in school there when he was coach, and they won the national title in 2003. And, of course, I was working at CBS, and I was decrying the BCS situation that particular season about USC not having a strength of schedule that was going to get them in the BCS championship game. Turned out to be right. And LSU did, of course, and they got the game with Oklahoma to win the BCS title, while the AP title was given to USC, and kept their championship run going with Pete Carroll and those guys. But and during that period, I got to know he and his wife well, some of the members of the family. And he's got a close circle, a very close circle. But people don't realize how many people in his family, his extended family, that he's been taking care of, if not supporting. It's plentiful. His West Virginia roots are very, very strong, and the ties to his family and helping everyone in his family is something he's been doing since he started making a lot of money. And that really started for him during his days at LSU.
Tim, I know you got a broadcast to do. Wouldn't you love for him to sit down with Charlie Baker, and if there was a symposium, and not just a meet and have Nick Saban try to help fix everything?
Well, I wouldn't want it to be with Charlie Baker. I would prefer it be with Tony Petitti, Greg Sankey, Brett Yormark, and all the other commissioners of the FBS Division I college football area. I don't think the NCAA has any business being involved in college football Division I any longer. I really don't. I think the NCAA they did this to college football. Okay, these headaches that we're dealing with, and a portal that has no guardrails, and an NIL that has no salary cap. They are the ones responsible for this. Now, look, Charlie Baker's a politician, and he came in, I think, saying a lot of the things that we wish the NCAA had been saying 20 or 30 years ago. But guess what? It's too late. They kicked the can down the curb for 15 years during NIL from the moment those lawsuits were filed. Okay, and in basketball, that's what began it. That's what began it. The UCLA lawsuit from the player. That's what began all of this. And we've seen this coming for a long time, but the NCAA did nothing about it and really put the pinch on all the administrators at these power conferences in football, because the NCAA didn't have any financial stake in what was going on with college football. Now they do in basketball, and they do in the women's game, and they certainly do with the non-revenue producing sports. And they can do a fine job of running those tournaments. And they need to help the basketball coaches, yes. But I think the first and foremost thing to protect Division I college football is for the commissioners of those conferences. Okay, and this is vital in my view, because I've said this for years, and Nick and I talked about it when I did a one-on-one with him back in 2016 on a program that won us a lot of Emmys called Football Saturdays. I asked him, what do you want to do after your days as a coach? And it was one of the very few times that he would allow himself to speak well in advance, okay, of his future. And he said, Tim, first and foremost thing I would want to do is help make it better. Help make college football at the Division I level better in every aspect. I'd like to help the institutions. I'd like to help the players. And I'd like to make sure that college football is protected and that it grows and that the interest level grows well beyond what it is just in the South, but in every other corridor of the country. Well, that's exactly what I've been saying for years we need to do with expansion of the college football playoff, with realignment, all the different growing pains that you and I and have talked about here since you guys have had me on your show. And that is not in line with the NCAA, okay? The NCAA is getting in the way. The NCAA is who decided to leak stories about the Michigan coach to the media to undermine their run to a national championship so that it was not the number one story. It was, in fact, the wrongdoing. And let's force the Big Ten commissioner to implement a sportsmanship rule so we can get him off the field for 3 more games. I mean, that's not helping college football. It's not. And it was the NCAA and its investigators that were back-channeling that story through the media to turn that into a circus throughout the entire fall football season. No, I don't want Nick Saban talking to the NCAA. I want him talking to the people that govern college football at the Division I level first and foremost. Now, if the NCAA wants to jump on board and be helpful, if they want to change their approach, yeah, I'm okay with Charlie Baker being involved. But to this point, as an institution, the NCAA has been nothing more than a neo-colonial outfit that has been lining its pockets for years on the sweat and backbone of the players that have been playing that sport for years. And now it's up to everybody else to find a way to fix it because the NCAA has done nothing but undermine it. So if Baker wants in, fine. But the leaders of college football at the Division I level need to understand that they can't count on the NCAA to do a damn thing for college football at the Division I level. They need to count on themselves, and they need to find a way themselves to put up the guardrails that are necessary to regulate this situation with the NIL and the transfer portal that is now absolutely, completely out of control. So much so that someone that loves the game to the extent that Nick Saban loves it felt the need that, you know what, I'm done. I think I can help the sport another way. You know, Nick loved it too much. In my mind, if there's something that I think Nick Saban would have preferred to have done, if not walk away now, it would have been to find a way to help the sport as a head football coach before stepping into another role. But he couldn't do that because he's coaching a team. And people would always take what he thought he was doing for the best interest of the sport and say, no, this is all about Nick and the selfishness to keep Alabama in the top spot. And I think Saban understands that now that he's out of coaching, his new team can be all of college football. And as a leader, he can bring the suits together. They'll listen to him. And I think he can also go into a room filled with so-called legislative bureaucrats of the sport and get them to listen to him. So he could be a great liaison to bring both sides together so that the people that are involved that are making these decisions have someone there that's with them that can also tell them the needs of those players playing, because none of those commissioners understand exactly the world Nick Saban's been in, just like they don't understand the world that the players live in. And I think that's what he really wants to do. And it's been on his mind, like I said, for at least 7 years, because I broached the subject with him when we talked in March of 2016, after they had won the national championship the first time against Clemson. And he was willing to talk about it then. The conversation that we had was very similar to the one he had with Reese Davis today.
Tim, good luck with the broadcast tonight in Champaign and all the other rest of the games you have this season. We always appreciate the insight. Be safe. Thanks for your time, and have a great night.
Thank you, Smoke. Great being with you guys. You know that.
As
Anytime.
always. Tim Brando, Fox Sports in Champaign, Illinois, for a men's basketball game.